All right, guys, I'm so sorry. I just got an information that I was not being heard. Okay, can you hear me now? Please, if you can hear me now, just do a thumbs up so that I can know that you can hear me. Great. Thank you so much. All right, my name is Lydia, and I'm the African representative at Student Direct. And I'm very much excited to be your host at this event and also to introduce you to Student Direct. At Student Direct, we are dedicated to enabling direct connections between Canadian institutions and students here in Africa. And we are pretty much happy that you are taking time out of your busy schedules. We know today is Saturday in Nigeria, there are weddings, birthday parties, and all of that. But then you're taking time out to attend this webinar. This gives us the impression that you're really serious about going abroad. And I want to say thank you on behalf of Student Direct, saying thank you to you for joining us at this webinar. Now that you know me, I would like to also know you. So we'll just play like a little game so that I'll know where you're watching us from and get to know you more as we commence this webinar. So can we have the Menti game on the screen? So no. All right. So first, hold on, Audrey. Let me share my screen so I can show the QR code first. Great. Please, can you enable me to screen share? I can't screen share. Audrey. Okay, let me try to share. It's saying that you have disabled participant screen sharing. So can you allow me share my screen, please? Great, I can share my screen now. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Great. Okay, guys, please can you scan the QR code? We're just going to play a quick game. Just scan the QR code, and then I'll be asking a few questions before we commence this webinar. I just want to get to know you guys and know exactly my people and the people that I'm speaking with today. So yeah. So if you have, if you're already on the Menti app, can you just give me a thumbs up so that we can start asking the questions? Great. So I'll stop sharing and then we can start the question. Audrey, please share your screen. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So the first question is, what city are you watching us from? What city are you joining us from? So if you're watching from Lagos, if you're watching from Ondo State, I think we should do states this time around. So not just Nigeria, yes. Can we do states? Can we just do states in the country? So Lagos, Nigeria, Abuja, Nigeria. Oh, wow. Daniel is watching us from Enugu. Thank you, Daniel. Okay. I can only see one. Can you use the Menti app? Great. I see Delta. I see Plateau State. I see, okay. I see Lagos. That's great. Okay. I see Delta. I see Ondo State. Thank you for joining us, Oluwafemi. Thank you for joining us, Umar from Kaduna. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us. Great. Thank you, Progress. Oyo State. Great, great. So let's go to the next question. So click to the next question. What field of study are you interested in? So if you're interested in business, if you're interested in health, just type it on and then I'm going to see it on the screen. Earth science, great. I can see marketing, great. Hospitality management, great. I can see law, petroleum engineering and data science, medicine, marketing and advertising, creative design. Wow, great courses. Computer science, great. Ocean science. This course is very interesting. Maybe the first time that I'm hearing this course, but then great. Geoscience, creative design. So let's move to the next question. What topics are you interested in learning for today's webinar? So we have 7 or 6 topics, and then we have question and answers. If you have other topics that are not here, you can feel free to drop it. So if you're interested in visa type, if you're interested in the application process, just type it out. Work opportunities, permanent residency pathways. Great, great. So I'm seeing people interested in visa type. I'm seeing people interested in application process. I'm seeing people interested in work opportunity. Great, great. In the application process, great. I'm seeing permanent residency moved from 4th position to 2nd position. I'm impressed. Great, great. So let's move to the next questions. The next question, sorry. Do you have friends or family in Canada? Wow, so, no, you don't. Great, great, great. So, no, no. Okay, that's fine. So let's move to the next question, please. When do you want to start your application? So we have different options here. As soon as I get my acceptance letter, within the next 2 weeks, by the end of the month, by next year. Okay. Okay, ASAP, great. Daniel is saying ASAP, Progress is saying ASAP. Okay, I'm seeing so many answers. By next year, within the next 2 weeks. Great, great. Thank you guys for your response. Is there a next question? Can we move to the next question? Next semester. Okay, so the next, I'm guessing you're saying the next intake, and the next intake would be January 2024, because obviously you can't meet up with September intake anymore. So it will be January 2024. If there's a next question, let's move to the next question. If there's none, I'll just proceed to share my screen. Thank you so much, guys. It was really fun reading from you guys. So I'll just proceed to share my screen, and yes, I'll proceed to share my screen now. Great. So today we are going to be talking about visa types, application process, work opportunities, permanent residency pathways, compliance regulations, and then support services that you have as an international student. I'm seeing that majority of the students are joining us here from Nigeria, which is pretty much okay. So somehow I feel like we understand each other. And also, if you're joining us from other parts of Africa, we definitely understand each other because we speak English. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting session. I'll just say sit back, relax, so that we can have this session. If you have questions, please feel free to drop it on the chat box or on the question and answer session. Okay, I'll specifically say that let's drop it on the session and the question and answer session. I'll specifically say let's drop it on the question and answer session. Let's drop it on question and answer session so that at the end of the webinar, I'll be able to answer your question. At the end of the webinar, I'll be able to answer your question. So let's move ahead. Now let's dive to the business of the day, which is visa and immigration considerations for international students. It's very important to note so many things as we commence um, this webinar. It's important for us as African students to know why this webinar is very, very important. Very, very important because of so many reasons. And one of the reasons are it helps us to plan financially. You guys know what's happening right now in Nigeria, where we have the exchange rate fluctuating. Today it's up, today it's down, tomorrow dollar is 1,005, tomorrow, next tomorrow dollar is 1,006. There was a time it even went as high as 1,800, right? But this webinar, that's the reason why we're having this webinar, so that it helps you plan financially and also, know the costs that are associated with studying in Canada well in advance. Very, very important that you know these important topics that we're going to be talking about today. Another reason why this webinar is important is because of it helps us to have smooth transition. So because we're going to be talking about different processes and also visa application processes, compliance regulations, and so many other topics, it helps us know pretty much what to avoid and what not to avoid in your application process. It also helps you maximize opportunities. And guess what? The last thing, it gives you peace of mind. And I'm very sure that you guys are I know here in Nigeria, we have so many agents, 1,001 agents. And then you're thinking, because of the way so many agents have behaved in the time past, you're thinking, oh, is it really right for me to do this? Is this really right? Don't you think if I go through this way, it will happen this way and all of that? But then this webinar will help you, decide when to start your application, know when to start, and then you can then start because you're already informed prior to starting the process. So now let's talk about the visa type. There are different types of visas in Canada. There's the study permit, there's the work permit, there's also the permanent residency, right? There are different pathways, to be honest, so many pathways. But for the sake of this webinar, we're going to be dwelling on only 3 topics. And that's the study permit, the work permit, and also the permanent residency pathway. So 3 pathways are what we're going to be talking about. So sit back and then let's talk. Now, for a study permit, is an official document issued by the government of Canada that allows a foreign national to study at a DLI. The DLI means a designated learning institution that is within Canada, right? These are the institutions that are, will I say in Nigeria, we call them authorized institutions here in Nigeria, or accredited institutions. Let's use the word. So that when I'm talking, you understand what a DLI means. It's an accredited institution in Canada that allows bringing in of international students. Let me just use that word, just for lack of a simpler word, right? So a DLI is a school approved by a provincial or a territorial government to host international students. I've seen people use the difference between use study visa and study permit interchangeably. They are not the same thing. A study visa is that stamp on the vignette on your passport that allows you to enter into Canada. That is what a study visa is. It allows you to enter into Canada. Now, the study permit allows you to now study. It's a permit, it's a license that allows you to study in Canada. Now, when you get into Canada at the airport, then you can get your permit at the airport before you enter into Canada, right? So whether or not you're applying from outside or from inside Canada, you will still need a study permit if you need to study in Canada, right? So simply put, study permit allows you to enter into Canada. Study permit allows you to study in Canada, and then study visa allows you to enter into Canada. Study permit allows you to study in Canada or stay in Canada for the duration of your studies, and then study visa allows you to fly, enter into Canada, right? So work permits, let's move to work permit. We'll still come back to talk about other things about work permits, study permits, and all of that. But then let's just explain all of the differences between the study permit, the work permit, and the permanent residency. Now, for work permit, is a permit that allows you to work in Canada, right? You get the work permit when you have a job from a company that can offer you sponsorship, right? That can offer you sponsorship. That's when you get a work permit, right? Either a sponsorship. So there are two types of work permit. There's the open work permit, and then there's a closed work permit. The open work permit is a permit that allows you to come into Canada and look for any job, right? Any job in Canada. And then there is a closed work permit that is to an employer. So you can only, when you get a closed work permit, you can only work in with an employer, the employer who is offering you sponsorship. You can only work with that person or that employer in Canada. Now, as a student, you only have, you can work while studying, you know, we all know that. And as a student during studies, you have on-campus work permit, and then we have off-campus work permit. Right, for on-campus work permit, there you can work in libraries, study services, research labs, and then for off-campus work permit, you can work 20 hours per week, and then from you know, hopefully from September it will change to 24 hours per week. But now, as at now, you can work 20 hours only per week as an international student in Canada. Now there are co-op and internships. Students who have academic programs which requires co-op. Now in Nigeria, co-op are called, like, you know, IT, you know what they call IT in Nigeria, placements, you know. In Africa, I think it's the general word, IT, placements, you know, SciWest, they call it SciWest in some schools, you know, so that's what it's called in Canada. There's no big difference, right? But then for you to have a placement or internship placement, you must obtain a co-op work permit, such as, you know, health-related work permit. Now, as you're studying, you go and do your IT, or you go and do your placement in a company that is in that field, right? That's where you get the work permit. So as soon as you're applying for your study permit, you have to apply for a work permit. If your course has a work permit, you need to apply for a work permit as you're studying, as you're applying for your study permit. Now, after studies, there is the postgraduate work permit. Now, the postgraduate work permit allows graduates from eligible DLIs to apply for postgraduate work permit, usually within 180 days, or 180 days, about 6 months of graduation. You know, when you've received confirmation that you have completed your study program, you can apply for a postgraduate work permit. The duration is usually granted for the same length of your program. Now, for example, if you go for a 1-year program, you get a 1-year postgraduate work permit. If you go for a 2-year program, you get a 2 years postgraduate work permit, so 2 or up to 3 years postgraduate work permit when you're done with school. So a graduate can work full-time for any employer in any job. That's the good thing about the postgraduate work permit. So you can work full-time for any employer at any job. That's how it works. Now, there's also the employee-specific work permit. I think I've talked about it. It's called LMIA, Labor Market Impact Assessment. Graduates who obtain employer-specific work permit would have a job offer from an employer, and you can only work for the employer because the employer is usually willing to sponsor your work permit. So the employer needs to get like an LMIA, Labor Market Impact Assessment, to prove that they are hiring an international graduate and that it would not negatively affect the job market in Canada. So the permit is usually valid for the length of the job contract. So say, for example, the contract is for 2 years, the permit will be valid for 2 years. It's for 6 months, the permit is valid for 6 months, and all of that. So, and it restricts the graduates to working for only that same employer. Meaning that if you want to work in another place, you need to get a job that offers you an LMIA again, another job. But if you get a closed, that's what they call the closed work permit. That's what they call the closed work permit, right? You get an LMIA for that. So next, for the permanent resident. Now, for the permanent residency, there are so many pathways that lead to permanent residency. Pathways to PR include skilled migration programs. Now, for skilled migration programs, they are designed to attract individuals with specific skills. Say, for example, you have maybe you're a medical doctor, you're a nurse, you are a care worker, it's used to attract people that have specific skills, right? Qualifications, work experience that are in demand. Note that word, in demand in Canada. That's where you have the skilled migration program. Example of skilled migration programs are the Federal Skilled Worker Program, the Federal Skilled Trades Program, and then the Canadian Experience Class. Points are awarded based on factors like age. So if you are maybe 5 younger, you have a point, your points will increase. Your education, so maybe you have a bachelor's degree, or you have a bachelor's degree, you have a master's degree, you have a PhD, your points would increase. Your work experience also would matter. Your language proficiency also would matter. And then your adaptability, obviously, would matter. Now, there's another pathway to permanent residency, and that's the PNP. Now, the PNP allows, provinces or territories in Canada to nominate individuals for permanent residency. And that's usually based on the labor market needs. So, for example, let me channel it now to Nigeria. Say, for example, Kogi State wants maybe workers. They can now go and nominate few people from maybe the US who can come and work in that state. And that's because maybe, for example, they're having shortage of people that want to work in the hospital and all of that. So I'm just like trying to explain it to you and relate it to how we, to our region here in Africa. Also, the graduate work permit scheme, I've talked about that also. And that's where graduates who have studied in one course or the other, usually in a DLI that offers postgraduate work permits, right? These graduates are now allowed to work after their studies for any employer, right? And then international graduates now gain valuable experience in the host country after completing their studies. Now, the work experience gained through postgraduate work permit can be used to qualify for permanent residency program. The listening, you're hearing it now. So if you study in Canada, the work permit you gain during your postgraduate work permit can now count for permanent residency programs like the Canadian Experience Class or the Express Entry System. So I know some of you are interested in that, but then there's a pathway to that. If you have a Canadian experience, work experience, that can help you in your postgraduate work permit. So that leads us to also the next one, family sponsorship. So if you have, I see in the chat, but some people said they have family and friends who are already in Canada. So if your family can actually sponsor you to come to Canada. Say, for example, you have an elder brother who is already a permanent resident or a citizen in Canada. That person can sponsor you to come into Canada, including your husband, including your common law partners. I know that common law partners are not common here in Nigeria. We only believe in the in the legal marriage thing. We don't know much about common law partners. But then common law partners, usually, you know what they are? People who have lived together for a very long time. Then they bear children. They're just like partners, and then they say, we don't recognize that in Nigeria. So let's just deal with the legal marriage thing, right? So your parents can also sponsor you for permanent residency. The sponsor needs to meet certain income requirements and then agree to financially sponsor or support the family members for a specific period. Now, there are other pathways like the startup visas and then humanitarian and compassionate grounds. But because of lack of time, we would need to, talk about all of these options as time goes on. So I think I've talked about the potential pathways to permanent residency, and then let's move to the application process. So the step-by-step process of applying for a study permit. Now there are steps. I see most of you are saying, oh, I want to start ASAP. Do you have everything that is required? What programs? We all know some people say they want to study ocean science, medicine, and all of that. You need to understand the requirements for each of the programs. Understand the requirement for each of the programs. For graduate certificate programs, the minimum requirement is usually a bachelor's, usually a 2-2 certificate. That's the second class lower division here in Africa. You need to have second class lower division before you can apply for a postgraduate program in Canada. Now, if you want to apply for a post-secondary program or a post-secondary diploma, you need to have a WAEC result. Usually in West Africa, we call it WAEC, West Africa Examination Council, and that's the high school certificate programs that certificate that we have in West Africa. But in other African countries, some people use IGCSE. They can use normal high school certificate programs as the case may be. But then for you to apply for a certificate program or a bachelor's degree program in Canada, you need to have your high school certificate program. Now you need to understand the requirements. And now that we've talked about the requirements, you need to start gathering information. What schools would interest you? What provinces in Canada would be fine for you to apply, right? Now the second course will not be, second option would now be obtaining an acceptance letter. Now that you've known the requirements, the next step would be for you to apply for your program. And then the next step would be knowing, getting an offer letter. So once you get an offer letter, the next step obviously is to pay your fees. Most schools in Canada now request for 50% of the first year fee before, if you're going for an undergraduate program or a postgraduate certificate program, before a PAL, provincial attestation letter, is issued. So you need to bear that in mind, that if your tuition fee, for example, is about 18,000 CAD per year, you need to pay around 9,000 CAD per year. Now, like I said earlier, keep dropping your questions in the question and answer box down your screen. Drop that, and then when I'm done, I'll answer all of the questions. Don't worry, feel free. If you even want to speak, I'll give you time to speak, but then drop your questions so that we can, I'll be able to answer once we're done. I don't want to get distracted with questions, so that's why I'm answering after. Now, so first stage, choose a program, understand the requirements, gather information, apply. Second stage, obtain your reference, your acceptance letter, apply to your choosing school, get an offer, pay your tuition fee, and get your letter of acceptance. Some schools will just issue you a letter of acceptance and there's a deadline for payment. So if you pay within that deadline, your letter of acceptance is valid. While some schools will still give you a conditional offer letter when you pay your fees, and then they would issue you an unconditional offer letter, depending on the school that you are applying to. Now, the next thing is also to know that after you've gotten your offer letter, you have paid your fees, you have received your provincial attestation letter, if any, then you will now get to apply for your visa. Remember that before you start the process, I always advise people, know what you need to have for your visa application, so that while you're waiting for decision for your admission, you already have your documents, majority of your visa documents ready. Now, prepare your required documents, your international passport. Usually your international passport should be valid for the duration of your program. So if your course is for 1 year, your international passport has to be valid for that program. If your course is for 2 years, I would recommend you even get like up to 3 years, more than 3 years validity on your passport. That's to enable you apply for your program. Most schools will not take an expired passport. Even if they take for visa, you cannot use an expired passport. You can't use a 6-month validity passport. It's quite very short. So try as much as possible to get a longer validity. So if it's now time for you to, if there's need for you to apply for an international passport, guys, start applying for an international passport. You know how tasking it is applying for an international passport in immigration in Africa, right? Especially in Nigeria. Getting an international passport, you know what they recall, you would see your back when you're applying for international passport, except you have the right connections and all of that. But then that's why we are here to guide you through all of the processes. So international passport is a stress. Don't worry, we have all the connections to help you with your international passport. Start your process, right? Also for your tuition fees, some people use, some schools use Flywire. some schools use other payment platforms to make your payment. Make sure you have the funds ready before you start your application. Now, you need to gather all of your documents like your international passport, your letter of acceptance, your tuition fee receipts, your proof of funds documents, your medical examination. Usually in Nigeria, they use IOM. So you need to go to IOM to do your medicals. There's another company on the island. I think it started about 2 years ago. So you need to use IOM, book an appointment and all of that. Like I said, that's why we're here. So if you need to start your application, reach out to me as soon as we're done with this webinar, and then we'll start it as soon as possible. Here in Nigeria, we don't need English proficiency. You can study without English proficiency. We are an English-speaking country, so we won't be needing an English proficiency exam. So, but for some people who did not pass English in their WAEC or their NECO, you would need to have either Duolingo or an IELTS academic exam. But majority of people pass English in their WAEC, so you don't have anything to worry about. If you pass English in your WAEC, we are very good. We can move to applying for you. Now, the step to applying for your visa, I have named it. You need to gather all your documents. And then you go to the Canadian website and then start filling all the forms, attach your documents when you're done. There are different folders. There's the study permit folder, letter of acceptance folder. There's the proof of funds folder. There's the additional documents folder. There's the international passport folder. And recently there's the provincial attestation letter folder. So have all of these documents and know how to combine them. In some folders, you need to merge some documents, right? So don't worry if you have issues with that. Reach out to me. I'll guide you on how to apply for your visa. Now, after you complete the application, remember that you need to pay application fees. Now, usually for medicals in Nigeria, it's about 79,800 for adults, and then I think about 45,000 for minors, between 45 and 50,000 for minors. So if you're going alone and you're an adult, you are 18 years and above, you need to pay 79,800 for your medical. That's to IOM. Now, for visa fee and biometrics fee, if you are a first-time if this is your first time for applying to Canada, you need your visa fee and your biometrics fee. Biometrics is usually valid for about 10 years. So visa fee is 150 CAD, biometrics fee 85 CAD. So that's 235 CAD. You need to have that in your domiciliary account to be able to make payment. So around 235 CAD is around maybe 190, 200 US dollars, because we don't have a domiciliary account that is CAD. So usually make use of US dollars domiciliary account. So you need to have around 200 CAD, USD to be able to apply or pay for your visa and your biometric. Now, when you pay, our response time right now is about 8 to 9 weeks thereabout. So some people will get their visas within 1 week. Some people get within 2 weeks. Some people get within a month. So you just need to get ready and start planning for the next stage, right? So as soon as you apply for your visa, you start waiting. When you wait for the processing, you receive a decision, and then you can now book your flight. Jackpot don't come with that. You can now book your flight. Then you arrive in Canada and do your immigration clearance, get your permit, and then off you go. These are the steps. But if you need to apply for visas, remember here at Student Direct, we help you do all of the processing for free. We're not charging you one kobo. So we'll be helping you do all of the processes for free. Now, let's move to the next thing. Common pitfalls to avoid when you are applying for visa. The common pitfalls usually to avoid when you're applying for visa is incomplete documents. I see so many people get denied because of incomplete documents or incomplete information rather. If you fail to fill out all of the required fields on the application form, that can lead to delay in your application or rejection in your application. Ensure that every section is completed accurately. Feel free to speak with a visa consultant to be able to guide you. My brothers and my sister, it's very disheartening when you get a denial. And I know that here in Nigeria, you would not want to get a denial. In Africa, you don't want to get a denial. So if you get a denial, it's somehow very sad. Sometimes some people get discouraged and all of that. So for you to be able to do it well, I always recommend that you don't rush your application. Take out time to sit down and do your application. Fill out all of the information, very correctly. Make sure you do a double check, even a triple check or a quadruple check on your application before you apply. Ensure that you fill out every section in your application. Another reason for denial could be inaccurate details. Maybe, for example, you misspelled your name. Be very careful not to misspell your name. Very, very important. Don't go and spell Ola as Alo or something like that. Don't spell your name somewhere. Make sure that you don't have any typographical errors when you're applying for your visa. Wrong dates. Be very careful of all the dates that you put in your application. It's very important. Even inconsistent data. You said, okay, you went to you studied in Cyprus in 2019. On the form, you wrote 2019 October. In your statement of purpose, you're putting January 2019 or January 2017. Inconsistent data. Very, very important. You need to put that in mind. Also, misspelled name. I've talked about that. Wrong date. I've talked about that. Inconsistent data. I've talked about that. These can cause complications in your application. Always make sure, if you're the type that maybe you know that you will make mistakes, look for a very good visa consultant to be able to review your application before you submit. Or even your brother can help you review again and say, please, bros, help me look this thing, or I don't understand, or help me look at it. Just make sure you ask questions. Very, very important, because it can lead to a denial. Just make sure you double check your application. Very, very important. Another reason for denial is always insufficient financial proof. You're not demonstrating enough financial resources to cover for your tuition fee, your living expenses, and also return flights. I see people, when they are applying for their visa, they only put tuition fee and living expenses. If you are coming back, how will you come back? If you're going, how will you go? So when you're calculating your proof of funds, make sure that you have the proper calculation. And this is how we calculate it. Balance of your tuition fee. So for example, you're going for a 1-year program and it is 18,000 CAD, 1-year program, 18,000 CAD. You're going for a 1-year program. You have paid 9,000 as tuition deposit. The balance of 9,000 plus your living expenses of 20,635. You can even round it up because of exchange rate fluctuation. 20,700. It won't kill you. So 20,635 plus your balance of your tuition fee, that is 9,000 plus 3,000 or 3,005 for return flight. 1,500 go, 1,500 come. Add it together. Use XE as in X, xylophone, xe.com to do your exchange rate conversion and know how much it's supposed to be in Naira if you're having a Naira account, or in any other currency if you have a domiciliary account. Make sure you have all of this information and then use that to apply for your visa. Now you need to have the funds. You need to have the funds that are available for your studies. Now, one thing I want to talk about that I see people make mistake is their financial documents are not properly scanned. I noticed that for some people, their financial documents are not properly scanned. Sometimes they just use phone. There's this scanner, CAM scanner. They'll use CAM scanner and scan. Visa officer will not have time to be doing stress of reviewing application that is not okay, because they have so many applications to review. So you need to make the work very easy for them. Go to a printing center or a business center, as we know it here in Africa. Scan your documents with a proper scanner. Very, very important. Scan your documents with a proper scanner. Don't forget, proper scanner. Don't use phone to be scanning documents. Please, I thank God, beg everybody, please don't use phone. It will have issues on your application. I've seen people denied because the visa officer said the bank statements were not legible. Sometimes when you use a phone to scan something, it's not legible because you have to merge. When you merge, you now compress to be the file size. And by the time you compress, it becomes not legible. And some people ignorant. I don't compress. And then you upload. Wahala at the end of the day, you get denied. So make sure you have all of these things very, very scanned on your application. All your documents must be properly scanned. Next thing is unacceptable documents. When you submit unverifiable or non-standard financial documents, be very careful not to submit unverifiable bank statements. Like, for example, we know what commercial banks are. We know what microfinance banks are. Microfinance banks are not used for visa application. If you use microfinance bank, they'll deny you because they believe that microfinance bank, the money in microfinance banks are not traceable, right? Money in microfinance banks are not traceable. So they always have issues with using funds from microfinance banks. Make sure you're using a proper commercial bank. You all know what proper commercial banks are. Globus Bank, First Bank, GTB, different banks. We have over 20 commercial banks in Nigeria. So make sure you're using a commercial bank that can be traceable, that IRCC can reach out to if there's any concern or any issue, right? So make sure you're using proper documents. Some investment companies' documents can be used also for visa application. So you need to check in with me if you need to use investment documents for your visa application. Also, use official documents. Let there be stamp. Let the bank even sign on it. It makes it very official. There's a stamp and then there's a sign. Don't print out bank statement from your bank app and then upload it. It's not official. Make sure it is stamped and then there's a signature on it. Now, another reason for denial would be missing and incorrect supporting documents. Omitting required documents such as acceptance letters. You say you want to go and study abroad, not upload your acceptance letter. How do you want the visa officer to know that you already have an acceptance from that school? So acceptance letters, financial proof, language proficiency test results, it can lead to application rejection. Always look at, checklist your document. If possible, do a table of content. Do a table of content so that the visa officer can say, oh, number one, my letter of acceptance, my tuition fee receipt, my CV, my employment letter, my reference letter, my study leave letter. Then merge all of them together. And tell me why you have any issue to be denied. You will be denied if you have all of these documents. Or if you know how to merge your documents and compile them together, you won't be denied. So if you submit your documents in the wrong format, maybe instead of PDF, I would recommend PDF. Don't even use JPEG. Use PDF. Some people now use some other formats to do their document, and then it's not readable to the visa officer. That can lead to a denial also. So make sure that you submit your documents in the right format. Always use PDF copies. PDF copies. Don't use JPEG. I would recommend PDF copies because they are readable, and accessible to anybody reviewing them. Great. So the next thing is also late application. When you submit your application after the deadline, it can result to a rejection. Imagine that you're starting your course in like July, and then you want to now start application by this time. You've already missed the deadline. Some schools even have deadlines for notifying them that you've already gotten visa. So as at that, by now, say you're already late. You get me? By now, you're already late. So make sure you submit your application way before the deadline. It's always advised that you start your application at least 6 months before resumption. Now is a good time to start January application. And as a matter of fact, my guys, some schools are already closing up some courses, especially some competitive programs are already closed, right? So make sure that you start your application way at least 6 months before resumption. That should be the least. Because remember that you pay school fees. Remember also, it's not like you're sending one fund within your country, like from Union Bank, Zenith Bank. You're sending outside the country, and it can take days before it gets to the country, right? So you need to start your application enough time before your resumption period. Late application can lead to visa denial. Late visa application can lead to visa denial. Also, outdated information. Medical that you have done in 2022, cannot use it for application right now. Medical is valid for 1 year. So if your documents are outdated, or your bank statement are outdated, maybe bank statements is like 4 months ago, 3 months ago, even 2 months ago, it's already outdated. Always make sure that your bank statement is usually between if you get your bank statement from the bank, within 2 weeks of your application, it's still valid. But when it's now more than 2 weeks, it's already a problem. It's already becoming outdated, because how do you prove to the visa officer that you have the funds? What if after you printed it, you have removed the money? So please try as much as possible to use an up-to-date bank statement or document when you're applying for your visa. Then unverified sources. Say, for example, your marriage certificate, they cannot verify it. It can lead to visa denial. Like I said, your bank statement, they cannot verify it. It can lead to a visa denial, and so many other things. And then lastly, I always beg everybody, be friends with your emails. Some people would submit application and go and relax. I have not gotten response, but you're not checking your emails. Make your emails your friend. Your emails should be your friend. So when you, even from before you start your application, I'll beg you, start making your emails your friend. If you're the type that don't check emails, make sure that you check your emails periodically to say, maybe I even have one message, or let me even check. Try as much as possible to check your emails. Now, let's move to compliance and then regulations. I think I've talked about all of these: permanent residency pathways. Okay, compliance and regulations. So for compliance and regulations, it's important to ensure that you have you adhere to all the rules and regulations of your study permit. You cannot work more than 20 hours. My brethren, you cannot work more than 20 hours. Don't mistake and say, hey, how will I pay my fees? The reason you are showing proof of funds from your home country is because you said you have the money to study. So don't use that as an excuse to come and start working full time. It will affect you if you want to apply for postgraduate work permit. If you work more than the stipulated time, remember that their system is very much organized than what we have here. Their system is very much organized. If you work more than 21 hours, they will know. More than 20 hours, I mean. If you work more than 20 hours, if you work 20 hours, 5 seconds, they know. They know. So don't make that mistake. I beg everybody, don't make that mistake to work outside your work hour, your stipulated work hour that is given to you as an international student. I'm very happy that from September you can now work 24 hours. Let's see what's going to happen in the coming years also, whether it will increase and all of that. But for now, 20 hours from September, 24 hours. It's very important that you comply with all the regulations. If not, they will deport you. They will deport you to your own country. So try as much as possible to renew your documents where necessary or when necessary. If you need to update your study permit, if you need to add a second program after your first program, make sure you apply for a study permit extension. Always update IRCC on any change. Say, for example, you want to go to Conestoga College. And then when you get to Conestoga College, you are not now feeling Conestoga College. You want to now move to Saskatchewan Polytechnic. You have to inform IRCC that I am changing my DLI. So inform them of any changes in your application. The consequences of failure to comply with immigration regulations can lead to deportation. It can lead to your study permit cancellation. It can also lead to academic disruption. Remember, you said you want to go and study, right? It can lead to academic disruption. So you need to be very careful when you're in that country. Make sure you stick to your permit. Whatever is in your permit, make sure you stick to it. Now let's move to the next topic, which is support services. There are different support services that are available to international students. And let's say, for example, I'll start with the educational institution. Your school, your university, your college that you're going to study in, they have dedicated offices for international students. And they offer a wide range of support services. They can guide you for visa guidance. Say, for example, you want to extend your visa, they have support services in that department to help support staff that can help you with visa applications, orientation programs, maybe cultural integration programs, and also workshops, seminars, you know, and all of that. They have all of these services. So feel free to make use of these services as soon as you land into Canada. They are very, and guess what? It's free. You're not paying any money. It's very free. So feel free to walk into the support services office and then speak to any of them. They even have emotional support. So if you're having issues with, hey, this course is too much, or hey, how will I do it now? They have people who can guide you on how to achieve your goals, your study goals in Canada. They are in that school. So don't be afraid. I know that when you're getting into a new country or a new land, especially for people who have not traveled outside the shores of Nigeria before, it's daunting. You're like, hey, I don't know how to do it. So, hey, God, what will I do? What will I do? That kind of thing. But we have people who are, that's their job. They are not lecturers. They are not lecturers. That's their job. They would help you and guide you throughout the process. There are also professional immigration consultants that can help you with counseling that are tailored to your circumstance, helping you to understand the visa requirements. They can help you with your admission, your preparation, submission of your visa applications. And that's why we are here, right? We are more like your support services here in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, I am more like your support service here in Nigeria, in Africa. So feel free to reach out to me when you have concerns concerning your application. So if you want to start your application as soon as possible, send me a message, reach out to me via call or WhatsApp or anything. I'll be here to guide you through the process from start to finish. I would even help you on choosing the right course for you. I'll guide you to choosing the right course for you, help you to submit your application, do everything for you at a free cost. We're not charging you one kobo, like I said at the beginning. Also, there are government agencies' website like www.canada.ca, where you can get information about visa applications. You can get information about everything you need to know about studying, more information. Always make sure that you avoid rumors. People can say one thing that can make you discouraged and say, hey, I don't think I want to go to Canada again. I'm hearing that this one is happening. I'm hearing that this one is happening. All the information you need to know can be found on the Canadian government's website. If it is not there, it is not true. If that information is not there, it's not true. So avoid rumors. Rumors can be very discouraging. If you need any information, log on to www.canada.ca, go to the news part, student news part, or any part on that. You will get all the information that you're looking for. Don't let anybody discourage you. Studying in Canada is a very sweet process. Very sweet process. You would enjoy it. If you missed our last webinar, go back to YouTube and watch the replay. You would see students who have studied there and already living in Canada, their experiences. They had so much good stories to share, right? They were able to talk about the bad side of studying in Canada, the good side, and then they said the good side of studying in Canada outweighs the bad side of studying in Canada. Yes, at the beginning, it can be stressful. At the beginning, it can be wahala, you know, too much wahala because you're coming into a new country, you don't know anybody. It's just like moving from Aba to Lagos, right? Or moving to Tamale to Ghana, to Accra rather, from Tamale to Accra. You move from Tamale to Accra. You have issues, right? Because you don't know anybody there. I remember when I moved from Kogi State to Lagos, I didn't know anybody, but I was looking for greener pasture. That was almost 10 years ago anyways. And I moved to Lagos. It was quite daunting. For the first months, I was like, are you sure I will not return? But let me just go and be eating rice and beans in my father's house because I'm not suffering now. Why did I come here to come and be suffering? You know, at the end of the day, I'm grateful that I remained in Lagos. So like I say to everybody, at the beginning, it may be somehow, it might be too much wahala for you. But at the end of the day, you would enjoy it. Now you will come and say, hey God, if I had known, I would have come earlier. If I had known, I would have come earlier. So that's what I'm saying. So don't allow rumors make you, if you are focused, be focused on the goal. You want to become a PR, good. You want to become a citizen at the end of the day, good. Start the process. Start the process. Start your study goals. You know, studying in Canada is a pathway to becoming a PR. Studying in Canada is a pathway to becoming a citizen in Canada, right? Start the process, and you would never, you appreciate yourself at the end of the day for doing it and for starting now. So thank you, guys. Let's move to the question and answer session. If you have questions, I think I'm going to read through the question and answer part. So let me start answering the question. Okay, so somebody said, good day, I got admitted to University of Niagara Falls. I want to know how to get accommodation. There are several sites or websites. If you cannot get on-campus accommodation, you definitely get off-campus accommodation. Please be very careful when you look for accommodation, especially in Canada. Avoid Facebook Marketplace. I'm not saying there are not genuine people there. Avoid Facebook. There are some websites that I might share with you. So Daniel, send me an email when you're after this webinar. I may be able to guide you on getting an accommodation in Canada, sites to be able to apply for legit accommodation in Canada. So Daniel, have you gotten your visa? Have you applied for your visa? Let me know so I can be able to guide you throughout the process. Another person is saying, good afternoon, Ma. Is it possible to apply for scholarship to study in Canada for 4 years? Well, yes, there are some schools that offer scholarships, but guess what? Scholarships are merit-based, and they are also at the discretion of the school. So they need to review your documents and see, oh, you are eligible for a scholarship before they grant you the scholarship. Usually, they are merit-based and at the discretion of the school. So scholarships are not automatic, not automatic. You need to, the school has to review your documents, and then if you're eligible, you get a scholarship. Kelechi is saying, I want to ask if you can help get employers for this caregiver pilot program that was announced recently. No, we cannot help with that at the moment. Stephanie is saying, during the holidays, I would like to work in a company related to my course for work experience. What permit do I need, or is the study permit enough? So if your course has co-op, you need to apply for co-op when you're applying for your study permit. So that I think usually for co-op, some co-op are about a month, some come up to 4 months, some co-op sometimes are even for a whole semester. So if your course has co-op, fine. If your course doesn't have co-op, then you have to get a company that you can say, oh, I want to intern here, I want to work here, you know, and all of that. You need to be able to get that. If you apply through us, you'll be able to get, we can be able to get you options for opportunities during your holiday period when you apply through Student Direct. What if I'm applying for the first time? Moses, I don't know what your question is about. If you're applying for the first time, reach out to me and then I'll guide you throughout all of the process. So Stephanie Otoabasiakwan, for the family sponsorship, my mom has a lot of step siblings that live on and off in Canada. Is that usable? What are their status in Canada? If they live there, what are their status? Are they permanent residents? Are they permanent residents? Are they citizens? These are the only ways they can sponsor your mom. And also, did they even include your mom in their application at the beginning? That's also something they need to consider. What about if I have a scholarship? If you have scholarship, that's very good for you. It reduces your proof of funds amount, and then it's okay. Moses says he wants to apply for visa. Moses, reach out to us. You already have an admission. If you have an admission, okay, so I think it's Favor. Moses is his surname. Favor, reach out to us if you have any issues with applying for your visa. If you already have an admission, just let us know. If you don't have an admission, we can guide you throughout the process. Can you list the payments and the amounts we need to pay? Payments from the beginning, application fee has to be paid to the school. Usually, most schools require 100 Canadian dollars for application fee. So if you want to apply to any school, you need to pay for an application fee. Great. So if you need to reach out to me, here are my details on the screen. It says, if you're ready to start your application, reach out to me via email. This is my phone number. I can be reached via normal call, direct call, or on WhatsApp. So can you list out the payments? I was talking about that. The first payment is always application fee to the school. Some schools give out waivers, not all schools anyways. I think I know about 2 schools that give application fee waivers. but not to everyone anyways. So you need to pay application fee, 100 Canadian dollars for application fee. And then after application, you need to apply, pay for your tuition fees, usually half of your first year fee, which is about 9,000 Canadian dollars. When you apply, after you've gotten your admission, you need to pay for application, your school fees, that's tuition deposit. During the visa application, you pay for medicals, 79,800 naira. I think that's about less than $100 anyways, about 50 or $60 if you're applying from other countries. But in Nigeria, it is $79,800. If you're going with dependents, I can guide you through all of the process. Also, you need to also pay for visa fee and biometrics fee. Visa fee is 150 Canadian dollars. Biometrics fee is 85 Canadian dollars. So when you join that together, that's 235 Canadian dollars. That's 150, 85, 235. You have to pay that alongside, and it has to be in a domiciliary account. Our Nigerian account or normal bank accounts are not allowed. But if you have a domiciliary bank account, you can use that to make payments. Umar Yusuf, I believe I've answered your question, but if I've not, you can still let me know. Daniel is saying, good day, my sponsor is not in Nigeria. Is it advisable to use his bank statement as proof of funds, or I should make use of a Nigerian bank account? What's the relationship between you and your sponsor? I always advise people, don't use like your distant uncle. Your sponsor has to be like your father, your mother, your siblings. These are the very legit ways, legit sponsors that I can advise. Because when you're using uncle, auntie, the explanation will be too long. So it's either your sponsor sends the money to you and give you a deed of gift, or you use your father, your mother, or your brother or your sister. Don't use somebody very distant. The visa officer may not be able to understand that the funds will be available for you at the point of when you're studying. So, you know, the uncle can decide to say, I beg, I have my other children, I have to sponsor them, I beg, I cannot sponsor Daniel again. Let me use for my children. And then you become stranded in Canada. The aim is to show that with or without the support of anybody, especially all those distant relatives, you can survive in Canada. So make sure that you have your funds available in a very close relative account if you want to use the sponsor. Your father, your mother, your brother, or your sister. All those uncle things, I will not recommend them. Seriously, I will not recommend. If you have issues with proof of funds and you're finding a way to go about it, please reach out to me. I'll be able to guide you through options that you can use. Can you transfer if you're already in a university? Some schools allow transfer, so they'll do a transfer of credit. So you need to get your transcript from your school here in Nigeria, then apply for transfer in your prospective school. Usman is saying, I have admission to study MS in Master of Science in Bioinformatics at Northeastern University, Toronto, and an Empower loan amount more than enough to cover my tuition and living expenses. How much do I need minimum as additional POF? How can I connect with you to help me with my visa application? My details are already on the screen, so send me a message. But for Empower, I would advise that even though you are using Empower loan, have your own funds. Have your own funds. The goal is, with or without the support of anybody, you can be okay in Canada. So have your own funds. Empower loans, sometimes I've seen it in time past. Empower loans are not really legit. I'm sorry, not like legit. They are legit, but they are not really recognized somehow, especially in this our region. So when you are using Empower, make sure you have your own fund. I've seen a student who used Empower alone but get denied. They said that the student doesn't have any funds on her own and is relying on loan, meaning that how would the student be able to pay? Because the visa officer had concern that, you know, for Empower, you start paying interest, I think 45 days after you arrive in Canada. So as a student, how do you have the funds to now start paying if you don't have a job when you get into Canada immediately? So how do you now have the funds to start paying? So the visa officer had concern that the student will be able to pay pay the loan back to Empower and all of that. So be very careful when you're using Empower. Always add something to your bank statement. Have something in your own funds to support your Empower loan. Another thing is, when will this program hold again? Please sign up to our subscribe to our mailing list. Our mailing list, you'll be able to get information whenever we have webinars, upcoming webinars. Visit us on our website at www.studentdirect.ca. You'll be able to get information on upcoming webinars. Also, subscribe to our mailing list. If you subscribe to our mailing list, you'll be able to get information whenever we have webinars. We send you an email so that you can register. Please, I would like to consult your expertise for my student visa application, as I recently got an MSc admission. I'll need your WhatsApp or email address. You have it on the screen. From Sokoto, when can I apply for my visa? As soon as you have your admission, you can apply for your visa. So if you've not started your application process, reach out to me. We have so many schools that you can apply to. So reach out to me, and then I'll guide you throughout the process. Like I said earlier, for free, 1 dime. We are not collecting. 1 dime for people who are applying afresh. If you're applying afresh with us, we'll not take anything from you, right? Daniel, my cousin, is my sponsor. Daniel, let's talk about this so that I'll be able to guide you very much properly, because I'm not sure I'll be able to explain this so much here because of time constraints. Progress is saying, I would like to go to Manitoba University in Canada. When I log into their link, I was asked to study in a school that can help me get admission to Manitoba University in Canada, because I told them via email I have D7 in English. So I'd like to know more about that. Like I said earlier, I think I've not seen your question before I even answered it. If you don't have C6, at least a 6 in your WAEC or your NECO English, you can't get an admission in any school in Canada. You need to pass English. That's the evidence. Now you say you were an English speaking country, then you need to prove that you actually understand English. So if you have D7 in English, you might need to write an IELTS or other proficiency exams that are supported by the school to be able to show that you actually are English proficient. I think that's the question for now here. Let me check the chat if there are questions. Okay, so Progress has asked that question. Yeah, so I think you have my details. So if you have questions, please reach out to me via WhatsApp or even email. I'll be able to answer you. I want to say thank you, everyone, for joining us in this webinar. It was a very interesting session, and I look forward to hosting another session for African students again. Please feel free, like I said again, on the screen here, you can see my my details, my email address, our website address. Please follow us on all our social media pages. It is Student Direct on Facebook, Student Direct on Instagram, Student Direct on LinkedIn. Follow us on all our social media handles so that you can be well informed when we have upcoming webinars. And then you can also reach out to us on our social media pages, send a message on Facebook DMs, on Instagram DMs. Send me a personal message. For African region, I'm the representative here. Send me a message and I'll promptly answer all your questions and guide you through all the process. Thank you so much. And on behalf of Student Direct, I am wishing you a very great weekend and also an interesting week. Have a great day.
Congratulations, Lydia.